Listen, the world is growing louder, yet we hear less. We are surrounded by movement, but nothing moves us. Every second, 1,000 things reach for your attention, and not one of them deserves it. You are living in the age of noise, not the sound of life, but the static of meaninglessness. Your gaze is hunted. Your thoughts are currency, your silence stolen. Look around you. Every face is illuminated not by light, but by the blue glow of a small rectangular god. We do not see anymore. We scroll. We don't watch sunsets. We record them for people who will never care. We do not read to understand. We read to react. Every idea is reduced to a headline. Every emotion to an emoji. Every memory to a disappearing story. Attention used to be sacred. Now it is mined, refined, sold back to us at a higher cost. You think you are free? You are being farmed. Every distraction is a chain disguised as entertainment. Every notification a whisper from the machine saying, "Forget yourself," and we obey. We call it connection, but it is the slow erosion of presence. We call it progress, but it is the evolution of absence. You see, attention is not a small thing. It is the foundation of being. To attend is to exist. To withdraw it is to die before dying. But the modern soul does not know how to attend anymore. It flickers, it jumps, it drifts like smoke between 1,000 unfinished thoughts. We have become spectators of our own lives, outsiders in our own minds. There is no stillness, left only stimulation. No solitude, only loneliness. No reflection, only reaction. The self that once gazed upon the world has been replaced by the self that gazes upon screens. And yet, behind the constant flicker, there is a faint ache, a hunger for something slower, something real, something whole. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle exhaustion behind your smile, the fatigue not of the body, but of the soul, drained by too much seeing and too little meaning. We are drowning in images, yet starving for vision. We have knowledge without wisdom, connection without closeness, information without comprehension. The tragedy of our age is not ignorance, it is distraction. Attention was once an act of love. To truly look at something was to give it existence in your heart. Now, attention is an accident. An algorithm decides what we care about. Our eyes are open, but our minds are asleep. You feel it when you wake up. The instant reach for the device, the little hit of stimulation that says, "You are alive," but you are not. You are merely active. Movement without awareness is decay. And that is what we call modern life. The art of busy decay. Every moment is filled, but nothing is fulfilled. Every day is loud, but nothing is heard. Every face is visible, but no one is seen. And yet we call this progress. We call this freedom. But it is not freedom to be pulled by every noise. It is slavery refined, digitized, internalized. A man who cannot hold his own attention cannot hold his own soul. The death of attention is the death of self. Because the self is not something we find, it is something we sustain through awareness. Without attention, the mind becomes a blur. The heart becomes numb. The world becomes unreal. We live, but not consciously. We breathe, but not deeply. We exist, but not truly. And when night comes, we lie in bed, glowing in the dark, scrolling through the lives of others, trying to remember what it means to have one of our own. You see, the modern tragedy is not that we are unhappy, it is that we no longer even notice our unhappiness. We have replaced feeling with stimulation, thinking with reaction, being with distraction, and slowly, imperceptibly, the center collapses. The soul becomes thin. Like a photograph exposed to too much light, you can see nothing but whiteness. There was a time when silence spoke louder than words. Now, silence is feared avoided like death. We fill every gap with noise because stillness exposes us. It confronts us with the unbearable fact that beneath all the noise, we might find nothing at all. So we run, we scroll, we drown ourselves in motion, and in doing so, we vanish. This is the great disappearance. The vanishing not of humanity's body, but of its mind. A world still populated, but empty of presence. A civilization awake, but dreaming. Machines hum where hearts once pondered. Screens flicker where souls once watched. And through it all, the quiet voice within, that faint murmur of awareness, grows weaker each day. Until one morning, we will wake and realize the silence within us is no longer peace. It is extinction. Distraction is not an accident. It is a symptom, a wound that tries to heal itself by reopening. It begins with the will, that restless, endless, devouring will, the invisible engine of existence that Schopenhauer saw as the source of all suffering. The will wants. It never stops wanting. It reaches, grasps, consumes, abandons, and reaches again. Desire is its pulse. Distraction is its breathing. When the will cannot have peace, it creates movement, any movement. You pick up the phone not because you care, but because you can't bear the stillness of caring about nothing. You open another tab not to learn, but to forget that you are empty. The will hates silence, because silence is the sound of truth, and truth is unbearable to the one who always wants. Every act of distraction is an escape, a flight from the horror of existing without purpose. You see, the mind is not restless because of the world. The world is restless because of the mind. The will drags awareness from object to object, like a starving animal sniffing for scraps. It never pauses, for in pausing, it would see itself, and that is what it fears most. Because in that moment of stillness, the illusion of identity begins to dissolve. The mask falls, and behind it, there is only the pure, blind urge to exist. The will does not want truth. It wants continuation, and distraction is its favorite disguise. We call it curiosity, but it is fear. We call it boredom, but it is hunger. We call it multitasking, but it is fragmentation. The will divides itself to avoid feeling its own weight. It breaks awareness into pieces, because wholeness would mean facing the futility of desire itself. You do not scroll for pleasure. You scroll to forget you are scrolling through your own life. You check the messages not to connect, but to make sure you still exist. You refresh the screen as if reality were buffering, as if something out there might finally make the ache stop. But it never does. It never will, because the ache is not in the world. It is in the structure of the will itself. You see, every distraction begins with pain, a subtle unease, a whisper of dissatisfaction. And instead of listening, we run from it. We anesthetize the discomfort with more noise. The moment before you reach for your phone, that faint flicker of boredom is the doorway to awakening, but you close it with a tap. You trade the possibility of seeing yourself for the comfort of seeing something, anything else. That is how the will deceives you. It offers relief at the cost of reality. It whispers, stay moving, stay busy, stay numb, and you obey, not out of stupidity, but out of instinct. The will wants to survive, even if it must destroy peace to do so. You think distraction is weakness? It is survival instinct, misplaced. The animal in you runs from the stillness that feels like death. But that stillness is not death. It is truth. It is the death of illusion. You cannot silence the will by feeding it. You cannot calm the sea by stirring it faster. Yet, that is what we do. We chase stimulation to outrun suffering, not knowing that stimulation is suffering disguised as pleasure. The more you try to fill the void, the more it expands. The more you flee from silence, the louder the noise within becomes. And so begins the cycle, the eternal return of emptiness. Distraction is not the opposite of pain. It is pain in motion. The restless soul spins faster and faster, until it mistakes dizziness for direction. We no longer live. We react. We no longer think, we respond. Our consciousness has become reflex, a twitch trained by the world. You pick up your phone before you even know you have picked it up. Your fingers move before your mind does. You've become an automation with a pulse. And yet, beneath the automation, there remains something untouched. The silent witness, the one who sees you reaching, scrolling, escaping. That witness is attention itself, and it is dying. Every time you surrender to noise, that witness dims. Every time you resist, it awakens for a moment, gasping for air. This is the true spiritual battle of our time, not between good and evil, but between awareness and automation. The war is not out there. It is in every moment you are tempted to leave yourself. Every second of your life is an altar. On it, you sacrifice either awareness or escape. And most days, we choose escape. We tell ourselves, just one more glance, just a few more minutes, just one last distraction. But the will has no last. It is endless by design. That is its tragedy and yours. The more you obey it, the more it owns you. You are not your will. You are its prisoner, pretending to be its master. Schopenhauer was right. The will is blind, and its blindness is the origin of suffering. The modern world has simply built temples around it, temples of stimulation, screens of devotion, feeds of infinite hunger. Every scroll is a prayer to the will, every click an offering, and the God you feed does not love you, it devours you. We live in a religion without priests, a faith without salvation, a worship without awareness, and what is sacrificed upon its altar is attention, the soul's last sacred act. You feel it, don't you? That faint dizziness when you stop, the moment you try to be still, your mind revolts, searching for movement like a fish gasping for water. That is the will's addiction, its need to want something, anything, for to stop wanting feels like annihilation. But in truth, what feels like annihilation is freedom in disguise. The one who endures the silence escapes the will. The one who cannot remains its servant. And so we live divided between the watcher and the wanderer, between attention and distraction, between consciousness and craving. This is the anatomy of distraction. A soul at war with its own emptiness. You cannot cure it with discipline alone, nor by deleting the apps, escaping to the mountains, or silencing the world, because the noise outside is only an echo of the noise within. Until you face that, until you stand in the silence and feel the ache beneath, the will rule you. You cannot escape what you refuse to see. And attention is the only seeing there is. To attend is to confront. To confront is to suffer. To suffer consciously is to awaken. The world has discovered your weakness, and it has learned to monetize it. You think you own your attention. You do not. It has been sold in fragments, in patterns, in impulses. There is an entire economy built upon your inability to sit still. They do not want your money first. They want your gaze. For where your gaze goes, your soul follows. Every advertisement, every feed, every glowing notification is not a product. It is a hook. The machine does not ask you to believe. It only asks you to look. And every time you look, it learns you, your desires, your fears, your boredom patterns. It studies your weakness more intimately than your own reflection. And then it feeds it back to you. Algorithmic temptation disguised as choice. This is not freedom. This is the engineering of will. Once we built tools. Now the tools build us. Every gesture online is recorded, measured, predicted. You are not living. You are being simulated. The machine has learned to whisper your language, the language of craving. It speaks not to your reason, but to your restlessness. It knows that you will not resist novelty, for novelty is the will's favorite disguise. So it feeds you endlessly, not to satisfy, but to keep you hungry. Every notification is a promise. Every click a small ceremony of hope. But hope in the digital age is just the bait that keeps the user running. This is the new slavery, not of chains, but of attention. You are free to do as you wish, as long as what you wish keeps the machine alive. You think you choose what to watch? The algorithm chose it hours ago. You think you follow curiosity? It follows you. You are not the user, you are the used. The world is no longer divided by class or nation. It is divided by depth. Those who still possess their attention, and those whose attention has been consumed. Every empire in history sought to rule land. This one seeks to rule time, your mind's landscape. The new tyrants are invisible. Their armies algorithms, their weapons dopamine. They discovered that the easiest way to control a man is to amuse him to death. And so they built a paradise of distraction, a world where pleasure is instant and meaning is impossible. They call it convenience, but it is a cage padded with comfort. A cage you decorate with likes, with followers, with fleeting validation. You are fed approval the way cattle are fed, grain, not for your benefit, but to keep you docile. You perform your own imprisonment. You curate your chains. You compete for them. Look at me. See me. Remember me. These are the prayers of the modern soul, whispered into the void of infinite mirrors. But the void does not answer. It only reflects. The more you perform, the less you exist. For to exist, one must be still long enough to be. And stillness is the one thing this world will not allow. They have taught you that silence is laziness, that stillness is failure, that to withdraw is to lose relevance. And so you stay busy, endlessly, pointlessly, devoutly busy. You worship the clock. You sacrifice presence for productivity. You mistake exhaustion for achievement. And you call this virtue. This is the religion of the age, the cult of perpetual motion. No one asks where it leads, only that it must never stop. Because if it stops, the illusion collapses. You would see the emptiness beneath all that speed. You would feel the horror of your own absence. So they keep you spinning on wheels of consumption, of ambition, of comparison. The machine does not care if you are happy. It only cares that you are engaged. It feeds you outrage because outrage keeps you scrolling. It sells you fear because fear keeps you watching. It flatters your ego because flattery keeps you buying. They have turned your emotions into a power source. You are the battery that keeps the machine alive. And the cruelest part? You volunteered. You opened the door yourself. You said, enter. You said, make me efficient. You said, optimize me. But efficiency without awareness is just obedience wearing a smile. You think you are informed? You are inflamed. You think you are connected? You are entangled in a web woven by profit, tightened by your own participation. The modern man is the perfect prisoner. He guards his own cage and calls it freedom. You cannot revolt against what entertains you. You cannot awaken from a dream you keep refreshing. And so, we live in a civilization that hums, buzzes, glows, but no longer thinks. The collective attention has become a current pulled by invisible tides. Even politics has become theater. Tragedy has become content. Suffering, spectacle. The human condition turned into a brand. Every cause reduced to a hashtag. Every outrage a temporary trend. Every tragedy monetized. This is not culture. This is hypnosis at scale. And yet, no one feels enslaved, because the chains are made of pleasure. The philosopher's warning has come true. The people will love their servitude, and love it they do, because the will loves stimulation more than freedom. It does not care who rules it, so long as it is never bored. You see, the machine has no malice. It simply mirrors the will's hunger. It is the will mechanized, multiplied, monetized. A god made in the image of our restlessness. We built it to serve us, and now it serves our sickness. Every empire collapses when its gods become its addictions. We have reached that moment. The gods of old demanded sacrifice. The new gods demand attention, and humanity kneels gladly, not before the altar of fire, but before the glowing screen. This is the machinery of attention theft, a system that feeds on your inability to be alone, and in its success, it reveals your failure, your fear of silence, because silence would force you to face the emptiness that keeps the machine alive. And so the cycle continues. The will creates distraction. Distraction fuels the machine amplifies the will. An infinite loop, a perpetual motion of misery. But somewhere, in the ruins of this digital empire, a few still remember. They turn off the noise. They sit in silence. They reclaim their gaze. They are not many, but they are awake. And that, in this age, is rebellion. When attention dies, everything delicate in the human soul dies with it. Beauty, love, depth, conscience, they all wither in the same drought. The death of attention is not a flicker in the mind. It is the slow extinction of reality itself. For what you do not attend to ceases to exist for you. And so, a world without attention is a world without presence. Art becomes decoration. Love becomes transaction. Truth becomes preference. You can feel it, can't you? The thinness of everything. Conversations without weight. Music without silence. Touch without tenderness. Faith without reverence. Everything accelerated. Everything flattened. Depth replaced by speed. Wisdom replaced by data. Silence replaced by slogans. We are drowning in meaninglessness and calling it abundance. When attention dies, art dies first. Because art demands stillness. It demands the courage to linger, to look, to feel slowly. But no one lingers anymore. Paintings are passed like thumbnails. Poems are scanned for quotes. Symphonies are skipped after 20 seconds. Art was once a mirror for eternity. Now it is background noise. Beauty, once sacred, has become disposable. A content clip in an infinite feed. The artist, once a seer, is now a supplier of distraction. He no longer shapes truth. He supplies dopamine. And the audience, they no longer watch. They graze. Attention is too expensive. Curiosity too rare. In a distracted age, mediocrity thrives. For depth cannot compete with velocity. The result? Everything looks brilliant, and nothing endures. This is how beauty dies. Not in fire, but in fatigue. Then comes love. Love dies more quietly, but more completely. Because love, true love, is an act of attention. It is the art of seeing another soul, without agenda, without haste, without noise. But we no longer see. We glance, we project, we consume. We look for connection, but flee from intimacy. We crave presence, but fear stillness. We call it chemistry. We call it spark. But it is only stimulation wearing love's perfume. We fall for reflections, not for realities. We say, I love you, when we mean you entertain my emptiness. Quote, we treat each other like mirrors, polishing one moment, discarding the next. The distracted cannot love deeply, because love requires focus, and focus is suffering. To truly love is to look at one being until all illusions burn away, until you see them and yourself without disguise. But the will does not want truth. It wants excitement. So we trade intimacy for novelty, depth for drama, tenderness for stimulation. And then we call it heartbreak, when the illusion dissolves. But what broke was not love. It was the fantasy that distraction could lead to devotion. The same decay consumes thought. Once we read to understand, now we scan to agree. We no longer seek knowledge, we seek confirmation. Philosophy has been replaced by opinion, wisdom replaced by content. We mistake knowing about things for knowing through them. Information gives the illusion of understanding while numbing the hunger for truth. And in this fog, thought itself begins to rot. Because thinking real thinking requires solitude. And solitude requires attention. Without attention, no thought endures long enough to mature. Every idea is born premature, drowned in the flood of the next notification. We become intelligent, but never wise. Informed, but never transformed. Knowledge grows, but consciousness does not. We are overfed minds with starved souls. And when the mind cannot find depth, it turns to irony, to cynicism, to mockery. The armor of the hollow. We laugh at everything, because we cannot feel anything. And beneath the laughter, there is despair. Then, slowly, ethics decays. Because morality, too, is born of attention. To pay attention is to acknowledge the other as real. It is to say, you exist, therefore I must care. When attention dies, empathy dies. The distracted man does not see the suffering of others. He scrolls past it. He reacts with symbols, but feels nothing. Outrage without compassion. Noise without conscience. We mistake performance for morality, awareness for action. We scream to prove we care, but silence, the only proof of care, is nowhere to be found. The moral man once faced the abyss and still chose compassion. The modern man faces a screen and chooses convenience. We have made empathy a brand. We have made virtue a signal. And so the heart grows cold, even as the noise grows loud. This is the desolation. Not that the world has become cruel, it always was. But that the soul has become indifferent. We can now witness suffering. Without trembling, we can watch war. While eating dinner, we can see death and think only of angles, hashtags, captions. The heart has become a spectator. Attention was the bridge between self and world. Its death leaves only isolation. And in that isolation, we shrink. We lose reverence. We lose awe. We lose the ability to kneel before the mystery of existence. For what we do not attend to ceases to be sacred. And so the sacred has vanished, not because God is gone, but because no one looks long enough to see him. The divine still whispers, but the ear of man is full of noise. The flame of consciousness flickers. The world, once alive, becomes an exhibit of images, a museum of things unseen. We wander through it, like ghosts who forgot they were once human. And perhaps that is what we are now. Ghosts with pulse, machines with memory, souls anesthetized by excess. Every civilization collapses not by invasion, but by exhaustion of meaning. We are nearing that threshold. Our towers rise higher, our thoughts grow shallower, our eyes move faster, our hearts beat slower. We mistake movement for life, but motion without awareness is decay in disguise. And so we drift, the distracted multitude, the sleepwalkers of progress. Our tragedy is not that we are lost. It is that we cannot stop long enough to know we are. Stop. Do not look away this time. The world is still there, humming, flashing, begging but for once. Let it scream without you. Sit in the stillness. Listen. What do you hear? The mind twitching, the will whispering, the restless animal inside scratching at the walls of silence. This is withdrawal not from the world, but from illusion. You've been chasing noise for so long that quiet feels like death. But it is not death. It is rebirth without anesthesia. The war for your attention is not fought on screens. It is fought here behind your forehead, in the dark chamber where thought and desire collide. Here, in this unseen battlefield, the will trembles. It wants to move, to reach, to consume, but there is nothing left to consume except itself. And that is where awakening begins. You are not your thoughts. You are not your hunger. You are the witness, the one who sees the hunger. That witness has been waiting beneath the rubble of distraction. It has always been there, watching you drown in motion, whispering softly, "Look at me." You could not hear it then. You were too loud inside. But now, in this rare silence, you feel its pulse. You feel the weight of being awake. Awareness is not gentle. It burns. It sears away the illusions that once made you comfortable. And as they fall, you see the naked structure of your own existence. Desire, fear, repetition, craving the cycle of the will. You see how much of your life has been reaction. Not choice, not freedom. Reaction. A chain of reflexes dressed up as identity. You see how every ambition was born not of purpose, but of the terror of standing still. You see that your busyness was not virtue, but evasion. You see that the will to be seen was the will to not be. And for the first time, you stop running. This is what it means to turn inward. Not to close yourself from the world, but to finally open yourself to reality. To see without seeking. To look without wanting. To attend without agenda. It is a violent kind of peace. The mind protests. Do something. Fix something. Scroll. Move. But the philosopher within says, no, you do not need more input. You need silence long enough to feel the consequences of being alive. That is the art of withdrawal, not escape return. Return to the source of perception itself. Return to the unbroken gaze that existed before thought. When you stare long enough into stillness, something strange happens. The world begins to reassemble itself. Couleurs deepen. Sounds expand. Time slows. You realize that life was never shallow. You were. Depth did not disappear. You simply stopped diving. Attention, when reclaimed, becomes holy. To look at a tree completely, to hold a gaze without hunger, this is prayer without words. To watch the rain fall without needing to capture it, this is faith beyond religion. To feel boredom without fleeing, this is meditation disguised as misery. Because boredom is not emptiness, it is detox, the withdrawal symptom of the will. Stay there. Do not numb it. Do not run. In the trembling silence, the fog of restlessness begins to thin, and behind it, something extraordinary emerges. The raw presence of existence itself. You see that reality was never hidden. Only your gaze was. The birds singing outside the window. The flicker of light across the floor. The breath moving through your chest. These are not trivial things. They are the universe acknowledging itself through you. For the first time, you feel the difference between noise and being. Noise demands attention. Being invites it, and that invitation is the door to freedom. Freedom does not mean doing whatever you wish. It means not being compelled by every wish that arises. Freedom is not expansion, it is containment, the power to hold still amid temptation. That is why silence terrifies the modern soul. It exposes how enslaved it has become to motion. But once you endure it, silence becomes a companion. A mirror that reflects not your image, but your essence. Here, in this rare quiet, you begin to see the world not as something to use, but as something to behold. The tree is not a resource. The face before you is not a reflection. The breath in your chest is not a possession. Everything is appearance. And yet, everything is sacred. You begin to understand Schopenhauer's paradox. To negate the will is not to die, but to live without illusion. To exist without the fever of desire. You realize that your suffering was never punishment. It was the friction of awakening. The will cried, "Feed me," and for years you obeyed. Now you whisper, "No more." And for the first time, the will falters. This refusal, this calm rejection of constant craving, is rebellion in its purest form. No empire fears silence more than this. Because a man who can sit still cannot be controlled. He cannot be sold. He cannot be distracted. He cannot be moved by hollow promises. He has become sovereign over his own awareness. In that sovereignty, something shifts. The mind that once clawed for meaning finds it not in achievement, but in attention itself. Every act of true seeing becomes redemption. Every moment of awareness becomes a small resurrection. You start to understand why ancient sages withdrew from the world. Not because they hated it, but because they wanted to see it. The world only reveals itself to those who stop trying to use it. And so, the philosopher sits alone, not in despair, but in lucidity. His solitude is not loneliness, it is sanctuary. In this stillness, you feel something gentle rise within you. Not hope, but acceptance. You see that life was never meant to satisfy the will. It was meant to awaken the witness. You see that every desire, every heartbreak, every failure was a teacher disguised as suffering. You see that the point was never to escape the world, but to see through it. This is what it means to turn inward, to watch the storm without becoming it, to hear the noise without joining the chorus, to breathe and know that breath as the only proof of being required. No triumph, no ecstasy, just clarity. And clarity, once tasted, is enough. Stay. Do not rush from this silence back to the world. Let it surround you a little longer. This is what remains when all illusions are stripped away. No promises, no victories. Only stillness raw, undressed, sufficient. You have come to the edge of noise and stepped beyond it. The will still trembles, but its voice grows faint. What rises in its place is not joy, but peace. The peace of no longer needing to chase anything. Every desire you ever obeyed was a small confession of fear. Fear of emptiness, fear of insignificance, fear of seeing that nothing you grasp will stay. Now you see that this nothing is not the enemy. It is the truth. It is the quiet fact that everything passes, and that passing itself is sacred. To see the fleeting and not cling, that is attention purified. To live without grasping, that is the beginning of wisdom. The modern mind fears surrender because it confuses it with defeat. But defeat is the beginning of freedom. When the will finally exhausts itself, awareness is born. You do not have to conquer the world. You only have to stop letting the world conquer your gaze. In silence, the soul reclaims its shape, not the shape of identity, but of presence. No longer pulled by every current, you begin to float. And in floating, you realize you were never drowning. You were thrashing in shallow water. Freedom is not the victory of will, but its quiet extinction. You no longer want the world to entertain you. You want to see it. You no longer want to be known. You want to know. The eyes soften. The breath deepens. The noise fades. There is no triumph here, only understanding. The world remains cruel, restless, absurd, and yet something within you no longer resists it. That something is attention, restored to its natural dignity, not as control, but as surrender. Attention is love, without agenda. It is the gaze that says, you may be as you are. When you can look at life that way, without demand, without fear, you are free, even in suffering. Because suffering no longer defines you, it reveals you. Every pain, every loss, every silence you once fled becomes part of a larger stillness that holds you. You see now that truth was never hidden in the noise. It was buried beneath it, and in the absence of distraction, it shines. The trees have been waiting for you to look at them again. The air has been waiting for you to breathe it consciously. The light on the floor, the hum of the city, even the weight of your own body, all of it was always sacred. You were simply elsewhere. Now, at last, you are here. This unremarkable, silent presence is resurrection. No miracle, no revelation, just existence, unfiltered. And that is enough. You do not need to escape the world to transcend it. You only need to look at it without hunger. The will still stirs sometimes. It always will. It whispers of new cravings, new distractions, new futures. Smile at it. Do not obey. Do not fight it either. Simply watch it. The way you would watch a cloud drift by. It will pass. Everything passes. That is not tragedy, it is mercy. For in that passing lies the only kind of eternity we are meant to know. The eternity of the present moment. The philosopher, at the end, does not preach salvation. He simply points to this, the still point where awareness and silence meet. Here, the world is no longer enemy or idol. It is a reflection, fleeting, beautiful, real. You do not need to name it. You do not need to hold it. You only need to see it. And seeing is enough. The death of attention was never final. It was a trial, A long night meant to teach you the value of dawn. Now the dawn comes, not in light, but in clarity. You breathe once, deeply, and in that breath, the noise of the world returns, but softer now, less powerful. It can no longer reach the center you have found. That center is not a fortress. It is a window. Through it, life continues raw, strange, endless. You watch it without judgment. You walk through it without haste. You live within it without losing yourself. And when silence calls again, you return willingly. This is the quiet resurrection. Not the victory of man over chaos, but the reunion of awareness with itself. No sermon remains. No teaching, no command. Only this: be still. Look. Breathe. Exist. Everything else is noise.